Kaylee Valdez, and I'm so excited for you to join me here. I have a bunch of different offers if you're wanting to start your own boutique journey, so I thought it'd be important to first just share my own boutique journey. I've had an online storefront, an actual storefront, put together pop-ups, had booth spaces, pretty much everything in between. So I wanted to walk you through my journey and hopefully at the end inspire you and show you all the different possibilities that there is when it comes to having your own boutique, as well as some offers for you to save you time and money with starting your journey. So, copyright notice, these are all my photos. This is my story. Please don't take it. Don't sell it. I feel like I'm going to keep moving. My face is what keeps happening. So anyways, at the beginning of 2017, I was bored at my full-time job and I wanted to just do something more creative. I always knew I wanted to do something in fashion. I studied fashion merchandising and design in college. I mean, even when I was a kid, I would watch 101 Dalmatians and draw like black and white outfits of Cruella de Vil. I feel like if you are wanting to do something in fashion, you probably have some kind of similar story of just always knowing that you wanted to do something in fashion. And if not, that's totally fine too. I know so many people that just kind of started it later in life and are doing very, very well. So anyways, I just decided to go for it and open an online boutique. I think that's one of the biggest steps, is just deciding to do it and go for it. So I initially invested around $1,000 in inventory, and I started researching February that year, and then by May I actually launched my online shop. I had no help. It was just me and my laptop, Googling, trying to figure it out. And so that first month I made back my investment almost. And then the following month in June, I started looking for local events that I could set up a space inside or outside just to have in-person interaction, see how people were reacting to what I had to offer, and of course, hopefully make some quick sales. So this event was about 30 minutes outside of the city I was living in. It was like in the middle of nowhere. I don't know if I had even heard of it, honestly, before I found this event, which Facebook is a great place to get plugged in and find local events. And yeah, it was under $50 to participate, so it was cheap. That's a 10 by 10 tent I ended up buying off Amazon. I brought an old folding table from my parents. My friend helped me that day. She brought that coat rack. Like, it's not the prettiest setup, let's be real, but it did the job for my first event. So I made over $900 that day. And this tiny town in the middle of nowhere, it was like over 90 degrees. It was very, very hot. And I remember going back to my parents, and my dad just could not believe that I had made almost $1,000 in that town with just a few hours of work. So, and at the event, which is why I love events, I ended up meeting a girl who I would come to know even more. She would show up to a lot of my events. She hosted a pop-up at her house. She was just so great at sharing the word about my shop. And that's a lot of what's so great about these events, is making that connection with people, especially when you don't have a storefront. So I love events, as we will see. So showtime. Now I have to move my face again. All right, so some events are great and some aren't so great. You'll quickly learn the locations, the organizers, like who does a great job, what places work for you, especially with boutiques. And these types of events, they usually only take so many boutiques because it's like an antique market or a craft fair, so they want to focus more on those vendors and just have like a couple boutiques, which honestly is better. I find that I did better when I was one of few boutiques versus a ton. Although I did do an event that was purely all boutiques and I did well at that one. So it just kind of depends. But anyways, I felt like doing these events. I heard from the customers exactly why I started. I started my online boutique because I was frustrated at not being able to find clothes that I could wear to work, that were more modest, that were easy to wear, but they were still cute, and things that I could wear on the weekends and outside of work, because I'm on a budget and I don't want to have two different wardrobes. And it's really hard to find kind of like more modest clothing that aren't crop tops and mini skirts especially I started this in my mid-20s. And so, you know, my style had changed. And I just kept hearing over and over again at these shows, like, thank you. Thank you for providing this. This is unique. This is great. And yeah, it reiterated everything for me. So year one in business, I was able to make just over $24,000 in sales. Obviously, that is before expenses and cost of goods, so that's going to take a nice chunk of that. But I want to be completely transparent. For doing this on the side of my full-time job, basically on some weekends, like, not too shabby. And then I think more importantly, the average order value was over $50, and I always feel like that's a great goal, is to be over $50 on that. So real talk, you might have seen that last slide and been like, that's not that much money. Because unfortunately, social media today has trained us to think like you can start and you're gonna make $25,000 in a day, in a week, in a month. And while that does happen for some people, and that's so amazing, I wanted to share my story because I don't feel like it's said or shown a lot, that it's okay to have a slower growth to success. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be a journey, and that's okay. Everyone's is different. And yeah, I just wanted to share that side of it. But also it's possible, because I know a lot of people are maybe just going to start this on the side of their full-time job, which is actually what I would recommend. If you're going to start anywhere, you're just kind of interested, start online only, keep your job, and just see if you even like it. Yeah, so growth and sales take time. Some people just take off. They've got the right people in their circle, and it happens, and then sometimes it just doesn't. But I want to help just guide you, show you what's worked for me, what's not worked for me, keep more cash in your account, and stay focused on your brand. So after 2 years of being online only and doing a ton of shows and pop-ups, I decided to go for it again. And I moved back to my hometown to open a boutique in May 2019. So that's the outside of my shop. The blue banners had to stay, so I had the white ones made to go around it. I had beautiful window signage. The downside to this was you couldn't actually really see in the store if you were standing outside of it. You had to like get really close to the window. So that's something, if you are looking at spaces, is make sure you can see in the window, because I think that hurt me. And then my fun little fashion show at lunch sign. If you watch The Office, you know. So 2020, throughout opening May 2019, coming into 2020, you know, things were going fine. My sales were growing. I was doing some events, having customers that were in the area coming in weekly. You know, things were just slowly picking up, going well. I had events even in February at the store, and my sales were better then. And then in the summer was kind of dead. It's also a college town, and I was downtown. So I was feeling really positive. And then I was actually also in the middle of planning a fashion show for the spring when, you know, 2020 happened. I had to close my store for about 2 months and basically go back to feeling like I was online only again. Thankfully, I hadn't left my online world behind. I think a lot of store owners were in a oh crap situation because they had completely focused on their storefronts, which I get it. It's its own machine, but they had to jump back into online. But thankfully, I had been keeping up with online. I was doing weekly live videos every day. I was showing up, saying hi, showing my outfit, doing try-ons, doing photo shoots, all the things. So I just went even more into it. Even during that time, I was still going into my store. It was closed, but I was still going in probably about 4 days a week to just like shoot content and you know, do all the things that I could do. If people ordered stuff, I would literally ship it out like that day, or I would drive. If it was like in town, I would drive it like that day to their house if they were close enough. So even quicker than Amazon. But anyways, once we opened back up, I quickly realized that things just like weren't going to go back to normal like we had hoped that they were. And most of my sales were now coming from online versus my storefront. And even my local customers that were ordering, they were willing to pay shipping instead of coming into the store. So it started to get frustrating because I was like, why am I spending all this money on rent and utilities and internet and all these things if no one's really coming in the store anymore? So that's, I think August, September is when I decided that I wanted to close, or I was really thinking about wanting to close my storefront. So thankfully in August, I was on Instagram and an ad popped up for a new boutique space that would have a bunch of boutiques within it. And it definitely felt like a God thing because it was so heavy on my heart on if I should close the store, what should, my next step be. And then this ad popped up, or the targeting, it worked. And so I literally messaged the girl that day. I went in the store with my husband, and in less than 2 weeks, I had my little space set up. The rent was cheap. I feel like it was like $75 or something like that, plus 10% commission. It was the bottom photo. That's when I actually moved within her store, but basically that's about a little more than the space that I had. And I was averaging $900 in sales a month from that tiny space. So that felt great from a new store that opened. And this was kind of in the middle of town, about 15 minutes from my store, and it was right across from the mall. So it was a great location. And yeah, then a couple months later, I was able to get into another space on the other side of town. The top right photo, they ended up building out this for me for my stuff. And at that point, I knew I was closing my store. And so it was so great to have a place to know I was able to put my stuff. It becomes a time period of just trial and error, lots of errors. I closed my store end of 2020, thankfully, and the only reason I was able to was because someone was interested in my space. Because when I went to my landlord and told him what I wanted to do, he was like, that's great, but you have a 3-year lease. But thankfully, everything worked out. And then I came across this other booth space, which was this huge store, and it has walls. I mean, it was like my own little mini storefront. I was so excited. It was about an hour 20 from where I lived, so I thought it wouldn't be like that far. And it ended up being a lot of hassle to get down there. I hated not being able to just pop in. And then the sales, I was told a lot of things that just were not happening for me. The first couple of months were great, and then it just went downhill, basically. And that was a year lease. So that was a hard learning lesson, but that was one. So that stunk. It's just the math did not make sense to stay there.